Well, back to one of our leading stories. We will be talking about the situation regarding Patricia De Lille in just a moment. She's been in Parliament defending her decision to dissolve the board of SA Tourism, and she's been answering questions from MPs about that. Hlumelo Xaba is a public policy and governance expert. Hlumelo, good afternoon to you. There's been a lot of criticism for Patricia De Lille for this decision. She says that the Portfolio Committee ignored, she told the Portfolio Committee the board ignored repeated warnings from the Auditor General and didn't fill critical posts. Do you think she's answered the questions she needed to answer from MPs today?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and the viewers, and thank you very much for having me this afternoon. Well, as a point of departure, what I'd like to allude to is the fact that the Department of Tourism has, for the longest of times, been marred by a lot of structural and governance inadequacies dating back to former Minister Lindiwe Sisulu's tenure as the Minister of Tourism. We remember that there was that 1 billion rand dodgy deal, which was contentious in the previous administration, which ended up having her being sacked by President Ramaphosa at the time. And Minister De Lille also did allude to the fact that she was trying to clean house and that she even dismissed the board that was responsible for the facilitating of that deal, which ended up not actually being going through. But going back to what you are saying now, I think that at the center of all of these challenges, what we can actually take account of is the fact that the ministers, both the previous minister, which was Lindiwe Sisulu, and the current minister, Patricia De Lille, are central to all of these challenges that are faced by the Department of Tourism, because you will notice that the accounts, there's an incoherence between what was alluded to by Minister Patricia De Lille and even the board members and the dissolved board members and former chairperson even, in terms of the accounts that they gave as to why they got dissolved and what transpired during their tenure as board members. So there's a lot of incoherence, but I believe that the principle of there are always two sides to a story was actually quite prevalent today, because we got to hear the other side as to the things that are transpiring within the tourism department and the board in general. So I do believe that Minister Patricia De Lille acted in such a way that she used the board. It seems as if she used the board as a scapegoat for her own incompetencies within the Department of Tourism, in that she dismissed the board, whereas the board had always been flagging a lot of structural challenges, such as the high vacancy rate, for instance. Sure. That was all alluded to by some of the board members, which Minister Patricia De Lille chose to bury her head in the sand, insofar as making the necessary appointment is concerned.
And Hlumelo, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, this is one of those situations where if you just look at the timeline, it paints a certain picture, and let me just explain the timeline. So you've got the Auditor General making findings against the CEO, the board then suspending the CEO, the minister then removing the board. So if you look at it just like that, it looks like, yes, the minister is protecting the CEO. But do we need to look at things beyond that timeline? I presume it's more complicated than just that timeline.
Well, indeed, Stephen, because I believe that there are certain things. Well, what in my opinion, what I seem to, I would say, detect from everything that was alluded to in that portfolio committee meeting today was that there seems to be a rogue relationship between the minister, the CEO, and the former chairperson that the minister appointed subsequently after she dissolved the board last year. Because remember that this is probably the second time whereby the minister is dissolving the tourism board. She did it last year, where it was alleged that the board members had an excessive amount of meetings where money close to R1 million was spent, which was allocated for the board for the entire year, of which the former chairperson of the board explained as to why the money was spent in that manner, which actually quite kind of made sense. So I do get a sense that there seems to be some sort of a rogue relationship between the minister, the CEO, and the former chairperson, which she appointed subsequently after she had dissolved the board last year. So in terms of the timeline, I would say that there is something that is very significant in that the minister seems to be protecting the CEO, in that there also seems to be a lot of power that the minister wanted to centralize between herself and the CEO. So we actually ought to ask ourselves the question as to what is the relationship between Hlumelo Xaba, who was the former CEO, who is a currently suspended CEO now of the South African tourism, as well as the Minister Patricia De Lille, because the role of a board in these instances, Stephen. Even if you can look at some of the parastatals in the country, the role of a board is to oversee the functionality.
Yeah, Hlumelo, I'm so sorry, we do have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Hlumelo Xaba is a public policy and governance expert. More news in a moment.